Hi, I'm Roger. Welcome back to my channel. In the video today, I'm going to be talking about output devices. And before I get into that though, again, let me just say thanks to those persons who would have subscribed to my channel recently. Really appreciate it. Yes, so I'm going to be talking about output devices here in this video. The video 2 is really targeting those persons who may be doing a computer repairs course. So you may be doing something like the CRT A+ certification course, or it may be similar course from our own certification body here in Jamaica, the Heart NSTA entity, or perhaps something in information technology that requires that you have some intimate knowledge, some deep knowledge of these components of a computer system. Alright, so let us jump right into the video. Okay, so first of all, let us look at really what output is, and then we look at what an output device is. So output is essentially the information that is produced by a computerized device. So by computerized device, there are different types of computer systems. So you have things like your handhelds, you have your desktop computer, laptop, and so forth, supercomputers, mainframe computers. So all of these different types of computer systems will produce information that is after data would have been processed. So anything that is produced by any of these types of computer systems would be considered to be information. Output device, on the other hand, would be the devices that are really used to output or to produce these information. So essentially what the output devices do is that they enable us, the users, to be able to have access to be able to interact with the output. Additionally, output comes in two forms. So output may be in a soft copy form or in a hard copy form. By soft copy, it means that it is in an electronic form. Which means too that it may be, for instance, produced on a screen, or you're seeing this information on the screen now. So that's an example of soft copy. You're also hearing the sound of my voice being produced by your speaker, and that too, is an example of soft copy. Hard copy is information that is produced in a tangible form. So here it is typically in a printed form. There are different forms of output, for actually. So we have output that may be in textual form, that's text. It may be in the form of video, audio, or graphics. Now, in terms of the types of output devices, so we're going to get our hands dirty here now. The first device I'm going to be looking at here is a monitor. The monitor is essentially the display. So that is what enables us now to view the information. And this may be on something like a monitor, as in the screen of a desktop computer, for instance, or a laptop. Or it may be the screen of a handheld device, such as a tablet or smartphone. It may also be an electronic display, which is normally installed in a public area. Alright, so those are examples of displays. And of course, the display enables us to be able to see the output in different forms, so in a text form, video, or graphics form. Now, it is important that I make mention of this, and this now is essentially important to those persons who are doing those computer repair courses. And this is this aspect of how the images are processed and produced on a display. The images that are shown on the screen has to be processed. So the images have to be processed and sent to the screen for us to be able to see it. Now, the device that is responsible for doing that is this thing here, which is a video card or graphics card. Same name, two different names, same component. Right, so, and this is one of those old school ones. So this is a VGA graphics card. So if you look at the back of a desktop computer, you'll notice that you'll see this port here, generally blue, and I believe it would have about 15 pins, and this is what now the monitor would be connected to. It fits only in one direction. Alright, so this is the graphics card, and this is what will be responsible for processing the images, for the images to be sent to the screen of the device, in this case the monitor. Additionally, newer displays will actually use this connection here, which is a HDMI cable. So that is essentially what a graphics card is. It is that component in a computer system that processes the graphics data and produces it on a display. There are different types of monitors, and the first one we're going to be looking at here is a cathode ray tube. The CRT monitors are essentially obsolete. They are no longer being produced. Now, in terms of how it works, if you take a look at this diagram here, you'll notice that you're looking here at the electron gun, and the CRT monitor may have one or multiple such elements in its component. So the electron gun, it actually creates a beam which is manipulated in the mechanism here, and the image is produced and displayed on the screen here. So here we'll be representing the screen here. Now, as I mentioned, the CRT monitors, they are obsolete, and as you can see here, they are, they would have been pretty much bulky, so they would have taken up a lot of space on the top of a desk. Additionally, they were quite energy inefficient, so they consumed a lot of electricity, generated a lot of heat also, and in terms of the images produced on the screen, they would have been far less accurate than what our current monitors are able to produce. And of course, there would have been the issue of distortion from magnets. So that is essentially the CRT monitor. As time progresses, technology improves, and as such, you'll find that the technology becomes better. So we would have migrated from the CRT monitor to LCD, and LCD stands for liquid crystal display. Now notice the contrasting difference between this monitor that you're looking at here and the CRT monitor. So there would have been a huge physical difference in terms of the two. In terms of how the images are produced and displayed on the screen, again, the technology would have been revolutionized here. So liquid crystals, which is this element here, plays a very crucial role in the production of the image. So the image is created at the back here, are reflected onto this mechanism here, the crystals, liquid crystals, and further processing takes place, and the image is displayed on the screen. So here, this represents the screen, which would be comparative to what you're looking at here. So that is how the images are produced. In terms of advantages, the LCD certainly has a much greater advantage over the CRT. For one, notice that it is quite slimmer, takes up a lot less space on the top of a desk. Also, they are far more energy efficient. So the LCDs actually consume in the region of about 70% less electricity than the CRT monitors do. And of course too, there is less heat emission, so it emits far less heat than the CRT monitors, and by virtue of that, that there will be less stress too on the air conditioning unit. So if you have an entity that you're using, a whole bunch of these monitors in, there'll be less stress on your electricity, but not on your electricity. Well, yes, your electricity supply, yes, but your air conditioning unit. Next, we have the LED displays, and LED is actually short for light emitting diode. Here again, we have an improvement on the technology, so we keep improving. So we have evolved from CRT to LCD. Now we are at LED. Alright, and again, the technology would have shifted here, so we had a great paradigm shift here. So in terms of how the images are produced, so they would no longer be produced using liquid crystals, but here now they are actually light emitting diodes, which is what you're looking at here. So you're looking at some of them here, which are used to produce the images on the screen. Notice the form factor. So they are still flat screen, but they are significantly thinner than the LCD displays, and we're going to be coming to look at a little bit more at that in a little while. So the images are produced by these very tiny light bulbs in the display unit. And the thing about it is that based on the technology, the unit is actually able to mix the different lights to give different colors, and as such, they're able to produce far better image qualities than you would get from the two previous monitors, the CRT and the LCD monitor. The two are more energy efficient. They also produce less heat. I'd mentioned that they give far better picture quality, yes. And also consider too that this is really the technology that is used in those outdoor displays. Yeah. All right. And also they have a far longer lifespan, and they are also more eco-friendly. Now, to give you an idea, this is just to give you an idea of how thin the LED displays are. See how thin it is? This is far thinner than that of LCD. And again, nothing to be compared with that of a CRT display. Now we move on to look at the projector, and the technology here is, the unit itself, it differs from that of the displays that we would have looked at before. Now, how the projector works is that it actually captures a signal. So the projector works with something like a laptop, for instance. You can hook it up to a desktop computer also. You can hook it up to a smartphone. What it does is that it captures a signal from those devices and projects the image on a screen, or you can project the image also on a wall. So the image is inverted and it is magnified onto a surface. The advantage of this is that you can get pretty huge images. So if you're doing a presentation, then this is what will be ideal for that situation, so that the persons in the audience will be better able to view the presentation. Now we move to look at output devices.
For sound to be inputted or outputted from a device, it has to be processed. And for this processing to take place, it must have the prerequisite device to enable this to happen. Alright, so right here on this motherboard here, this component here, this is the sound card. If you notice, if you have a desktop computer, if you look at the back, you'll notice that you will see ports similar to what you're looking at here on this motherboard. This port would be, this pink port here would be for the microphone. This would be for the speakers, so that's out. And the blue one here would be line in. Typically they come built onto the main board, but in a situation where you want to get better sound quality, you may want to go to the store and purchase another sound card, because these sound cards, they do give different sound qualities, similar to how you may go, for instance, to the store, you purchase a smart TV, but you may want, for instance, some surround sound. So you go, the smart TV comes with its own speaker, right, or speakers, but you may want, you know, a theater, a cinematic kind of experience. So you now go and you purchase, let us say, a surround sound, let us say a 5.1 surround sound speaker system to create a cinematic effect. And by so doing, it enriches the audio experience that you would have watching movies.
Okay, so that is the sound card, and similar to the video card, these devices are important, very important in the scheme of things in a computer system for the respective data to be processed. So whether it's video, images, the images have to be processed and outputted to the display, and the video card does that. And in this, as in this situation here, the sound has to be processed and outputted to the speaker or speakers or headsets. Let me also add that I made reference in the video to a desktop computer, but the laptops, well, all devices would have a sound card. It is just that based on the device, it would vary in terms of form factor. So laptops would also have sound cards. Similarly, smartphones and you know, tablets. It is just a form factor that would differ. These are some pretty much common output devices, audio output devices that, you know, most of us should be familiar with. So here you're looking at a speaker system, and where speakers are concerned, they come in different sizes, they come in different shapes, so essentially they're different form factors. So the sound card that you looked at in the previous slide would process the audio information and then output it to the speaker. And speakers may be wired or wireless. Wired meaning that they may have those cords or cables which actually connect them physically to a computer system, for instance, or to a laptop. Or the speaker or speakers may be wireless. So typically, if they're wireless, they would be Bluetooth driven. We also have headsets, and the same principle applies. So the headsets may be wired or wireless. If they are wired, it means that they're corded. So there's an electric cord that connects the headset physically to the device that it is being used with. If it is wireless, then, you know, it would be Bluetooth, for instance. And of course, we have earbuds, and earbuds, you know, that these are typically Bluetooth, for instance. So these are some very common types of audio output devices. Now we're moving on, looking at hard copy output devices. So these devices now, they produce hard copy. And remember earlier when I mentioned hard copy, I mentioned that hard copy is actually a physical copy that is produced from an output device, typically a printed data. So be printed on paper, for instance, or on some other media. We have printers, plotters, and 3D printers, which are examples of hard copy output devices. We're going to be looking at each individually. But before I get into that, let me just make this distinction. So there are two different categories of printers. We have impact printers and non-impact printers. Now, think about the word impact. When you hear impact, it is that there are two or more components which are actually making physical contact. That is what impact is about. So, when you look at an impact printer, it is that you have the print mechanism that actually makes physical contact with the print media. So the print media would be the ribbon and the paper. With a non-impact printer, there is no physical contact between the mechanism that is doing the printing and the media, and in this case, the paper. Where impact printers are concerned, again, there are different classifications. So you have those printers that produce prints per character. So in other words, based on the technology. So this is really what it is about. Based on the technology behind the printer, it actually prints by printing one character at a time. And those printers, would have been quite slow. Just imagine, printing with this thing, and for it to print, you're printing, for instance, let's just say you're printing even this presentation here, which is 27 slides. And for each character that you're looking at here, and not only the characters, but even the graphics, it is that it produces one of those characters. Well, let me focus on the words here just now. So it is producing one at a time. That's pretty slow. And then we have line printers, which actually print by producing a line at a time. And then we have the page printers, which is where we are now in terms of technology. It is where the printer will print one page at a time. So that is the difference between the different types of printers in terms of the print speed, in terms of how they print. So they may print per character, or per line, or per page. Where character printers are concerned, we have the dot matrix and the DC wheel printers. For line printers, we have the drum printer, chain printer, and band printer. Now, over on the non-impact printer side, we have things like inkjet printers, laser printers, and thermal printers, for instance. Now, for the dot matrix printer, and of course, the dot matrix printer, the DC wheel printer, band printer, and so forth, they are all old technology, very old technology. So notice that the dot matrix printer, it prints by actually printing a dot at a time, and the name of the printer will give you some clue as to how it functions or the technology behind it. So if it is a dot matrix printer, it means that the printer forms characters. It's a character printer by through the use of dots. Okay, and look at this image here, which is blown up. You should have a better idea of it. And if you look at these images here, you'll realize that the formation of each character is not all that smooth. Not all that smooth because each is made up of a character, a character of a dot, and the dots are not too closely packed together, and that is why the images are not all that perfect. So this is really a limitation. That's really a limitation to this printer, that they do not produce the best of print work, and they certainly do not do graphics to any great degree of perfection, should I say. So this is the dot matrix printer. They are still being used. Still being used because you find that in a commercial setting, for instance, in retail stores, they use them there. They use them in particular because this actually uses multi-form paper. And multi-form paper is where you have multiple layers of paper, and typically the ones at the bottom are carbonized, and this now forms a receipt, and so when the document is printed, the leaves can be separated, and depending on how many leaves make up the form, it may be 2, it may be 3, it may be 4, for instance. They will be going to different departments or to different persons within the organization, including a copy going to the customer. The top copy typically is what would go to the customer. Then we have the daisy wheel printer. Again, the technology, the name gives you some clue as to the technology being used here. So the daisy wheel printer, the mechanism actually simulates, it actually resembles that flower there, daisy. Notice the form factor here, and these here that you're looking at here, these are the characters which are affixed to this mechanism here, and so as it rotates based on what is to be produced, the respective characters would actually be hitting against a ribbon, or striking the ribbon, which makes the respective character impression on the paper. Alright, so that is essentially how it functions. The drum printer, again, it's a drum. The mechanism is essentially a drum, as you're seeing here. We have another image here, an illustration here. Similar principle to the daisy wheel printer. It is just that the mechanism is a different form factor. Alright, so here you have the print hammer, and this of course would strike the print media. The print media here now being the paper and the ribbon, and that striking would cause the respective characters to be imprinted on the paper. This is not one of those printers that would have been all that popular back then. And then we have the chain printer. Again, the mechanism. Remember, as I mentioned the name, that the name gives some clue of the print mechanism. So think about a chain. For instance, if you're familiar with a bicycle, in countries like the US, they refer to bicycle as a bike. Here in Jamaica, in the Caribbean, we refer to them as bicycles. And they have a chain, which is a part of a mechanism which acts as a pulley, would you say, that causes the wheels to turn. Similar concept here. So you have this chain mechanism, and here you have the print hammers, and the print hammers are basically these mechanical elements that have the characters embedded at the end, and printing takes place through these hammers striking the paper, and of course there's a ribbon there, so the impression of the character as it prints would be made on the paper. And here you have a chain printer. This is really the mechanism that is in it. So these are essentially very old technology, not really being used anymore. Now we move to non-impact printers. And non-impact printer, I wonder if you remember what I said about the non-impact printer. That with the non-impact printer, there is no print mechanism that is making any physical contact with the paper. All right, so these papers, these printers essentially are, and they are a great improvement on the technology which governed the impact printers. All right, so the first one we have here is the Inkjet Printer, and a lot of persons should be familiar with this. This is typically what persons would have in their homes. They're typically budget printers, so the cost factor, the cost per unit is typically very low. That is for the unit, but the inks themselves can be quite costly. As a matter of fact, the manufacturers typically don't make a lot of money from the unit itself, that is the printer. What they actually make money from are the consumables, for instance the inks. So here again I would have given you a clue here, and it is that for inkjet printers they use ink. So typically an inkjet printer will use two cartridges. So the inkjet printer uses ink, and the inks are housed in these things here, which are cartridges. There are typically two such cartridges in an inkjet printer. There is the black, and then there is the color. The color would typically have blue, red, and yellow. And how it works is that it actually the inkjet printer actually works by spraying ink. The ink is actually sprayed from the print head. The print head is a mechanism inside the printer. So the ink is actually sprayed from the ink head onto the paper to form the characters. And again, these are all line printers. Inkjet printers, they actually come in different form factors. So more modern ones will be looking like this. Then we have the laser printer, and the laser printers are typically, in terms of form factor, in terms of physical size, they typically are that much larger than that of an inkjet printer. So how these work, the print mechanism here is very much different from that of an inkjet printer. So here we have an electrical charge that is used to attract toner, the toner particles, to a transfer roller, and that is a part of the process through which the toner is transferred to the paper to form the characters. So yes, what you're looking at here is a toner. So again, different technology. So with the inkjet printer, that would have used ink. For the laser printer, they use toner, and toner is in a powdery form, typically black, and it is not really something that you should allow yourself to come in contact with, because it can be quite toxic. Yes, so the toner particles are then this is in the scheme of things. The toner particles are then pressed on the paper, and heat and pressure applied from the fuser unit. So the fuser unit is also an element of the mechanism. Affix the image onto the paper. So that is how the printing takes place. I should say that a laser printer has far more components. It's very complex in terms of structure, technical structure, far more complex than how an inkjet printer is designed. So it has far more parts, far more components, and the mechanism is totally different from the makeup of an inkjet printer. Let me also mention that where inkjet printers are concerned, they can come in two variations. So you may have an inkjet printer, sorry, not an inkjet printer, and a laser printer. We're talking about laser printers. So you can have a laser printer that is monochrome, or one that is a color laser printer. Let me explain the difference between the two. What essentially I'm saying here is that if the laser printer is monochrome, it means that it prints in one color, mono, one, and that color is black. So this printer that you're looking at here in the image, in the video, it is a monochrome printer. It only has one toner. Notice there's only one toner there, and the toner is black. Alright, well, by virtue of it only having one toner, it would only be black. Alright, so that is a monochrome printer. There's nothing that can be done to it if you notice the mechanism. So if you want to print color, it is virtually impossible. There's nothing that can be done to this printer to make it print in color, because it is not designed technically to print color images. It can only print black images and text. Alright, now on the other hand, now for a color laser printer will typically have the ability to print in color, and you can also print black. So if you're printing, for instance, text, you can print it in black. Yes. Alright, the color laser printer will typically have four separate toners. So there's the cyan, which is a shade of blue. You have the magenta, which is a shade of red. You have yellow, and then there is black. And what it does is that it mixes the colors to get whatever color is required for a color print. So that is essentially the difference between a monochrome laser printer and a color laser printer. Now I should add too that laser printers are typically very expensive, and they are not particularly used in homes. So laser printers are typically designed for the office, and the thing about them too is that they are high volume prints. So from a typical printer, you can get literally thousands of prints from the toner. So this, for instance, this toner will give you a couple thousand prints from the toner. The thing is that with the Inkjet printer, you're not able to get anywhere near that print output from those inkjets. Alright, and by virtue of that, it means that your print cost will be far lower if you have a laser printer over what you would get, or rather, excuse me, the print cost from an inkjet printer. So typically, inkjet printers, the prints are more expensive because the ink themselves are quite expensive, and you're not getting a whole lot of prints from the inks. So typically, you'll get a few hundred copies being able to be printed from those toners, from the inks. Whereas with the laser printer, you can typically get thousands of pages printed from the toner. So just to wrap up, they are more suited for the office because the print per cost would be less. So the units are very expensive, yes, but in the long run, they will work out because the print, the per cost print would be lower. Okay, so you do most of find these in places where they do a lot of high volume prints. The thing too is that if you are going to be working on the printer, you have to be very careful because it stores electrical. It has a store of electrical charge, and you can actually be electrocuted. So you have to be very knowledgeable, of the internal workings of the printer. And know the prerequisite precautions to take before you attempt, working on such a unit. In terms of the cost, I mentioned that they're pretty expensive. The toners too are pretty expensive. So for a typical toner, you may be looking at a couple thousand Jamaican dollars for each. The print qualities, though, I should mention too that the print qualities of the laser printer is far superior than that over that of the Inkjet printer. So that is another plus. So they produce high volume prints, and the print quality too is very much better than that, what you would get from an Inkjet printer. Now, this is a variation of a number of components. This is a non-impact printer, yes. Still non-impact printer. But what we have here is that it is a combination of a number of things. So you have input devices being combined with an output device here. All right, and this is a multifunction printer, also referred to as an all-in-one printer. Now, a multifunction printer, it can either be inkjet or laser. Okay, so multifunction meaning that the printer it has different functionalities. So typically, you may have a multifunction printer that is 3-in-1. 3-in-1 multifunction printer would have the capability to copy, as in to photocopy, to print, and to scan. So those are the three components that a 3-in-1 multifunction printer would come with. So here, you're looking at an image being placed on the flatbed there to scan. Okay. Or what happened here? I need to go back to the previous slide. Yes. All right. So yes, so you can print, you can copy, you can scan. Now, there are some units that are 4-in-1. The fourth unit being a fax component. So if it is a 4-in-1 multifunction printer, it means that this multifunction printer is able to copy, print, scan, and to fax. Okay, so just to wrap up on the multifunction printer, it is just a variation which includes some input components along with your output component or components. The main component here being its print capacity or capability, and the inkjet, the multifunction printer may either be one that is inkjet, which means that the technology behind it it uses the inkjet technology, or it is that it may be a laser printer. Now we have the thermal printer, and a thermal printer essentially is one that uses heat. So you have a heated print head being used to apply heat to a ribbon, and this heating melts the ink onto the print media. Now, thermal printers are typically, or let me put it another way, you'll find that receipt printers, if you go into a retail store, you do a transaction, and they have these little devices that print the receipts. Those are typically thermal printers. Then we have 3D printers, and 3D printers are relatively new technology. It's a revolution in the printing industry and in the computing industry, also technology industry, in terms of how the printing takes place. So a 3D printer is actually used to print 3D objects. So you have physical objects now being created, and this now is typically used in the manufacturing industry. So it works with things like your computer aided design software, and it works by actually using a layering method where as you're seeing in the video here, the objects or items are created by actually layering the material or substance in the print head to create the object. No, plotter, looking at the plotter is somewhat relatively new. It would have been come out before the 3D printers. And there are different types of plotters. So we have, for instance, the plotters that are inkjet, those that have a cutting mechanism, those that have a pen, those that are thermal, those that have a drum, and those that have a flat bed. Different plotters for different purposes. No, the plotter, as you know, as in this situation here, it actually uses well, no, not this one here, but where it is used, for instance, for like something like an architectural drawing, it would have a pen mechanism that is used to draw the lines. As in a vector drawing type setup on the media, right? The media now would be this thing that you're looking at here. They're very popular now because they're used a lot in places that do advertisements. They create like signs, for instance, and they're used to create things like banners, posters, the wraps for vehicles. You're seeing here. All of them are created by the use of a plotter. And finally, near the end, we have terminals, and a terminal would be, for instance, something like an ABM machine. That's an automatic banking machine. Now, I should say that where ABM is concerned, it has both input and output devices. The output device here now would be the screen that you're looking at here, and they also have an embedded a printer. So the printer is what prints the receipt. There's also audio that is produced by an ABM. It is a terminal because it is actually hooked up to another source, typically something like a server, and it is such that you cannot work independently of that other entity, which is, as I mentioned, that it being a server. And of course, terminals can neither be dumb or intelligent. If it is a dumb terminal, it means that it cannot make decisions on its own. It is barely used, for instance, to output. For instance, intelligent terminals, would actually do some amount of processing at that location. And finally, we have a point of sale system. So a point of sale system is also a terminal. So it is an endpoint where you have some activity taking place which is dependent upon information generated or processed at some remote location. So that is really what makes it a terminal. So a point of sale system you'll typically find at a retail outlet. And of course, a retail outlet such as a supermarket or a clothing store, so they would have something like this at the gas station, the cashier station there. They would have a point of sale system, and this is really the typical composition of a point of sale system. So you'll have a barcode scanner, and it may come in different forms. So you may have, for instance, something looking like this, which is a handheld barcode reader. Or it may be that the barcode reader is embedded into the countertop. You also have here a visual display unit. Typically they are touchscreen. You have, this unit has a keyboard. This is the card machine. So this is used with a debit or debit and credit card. Here you would have your receipt printer. We spoke about this earlier, and I had mentioned too that the receipt printer is typically thermal. That's the technology. And here you have a display. So this display typically is turned facing the customer, so that the customer can see the value of the transaction. that is being done. So this is typically a point of sale system, and just to repeat, it is a terminal, because typically a terminal works with a remote computer. So information has to be processed at some remote location, and it is presented here. So for instance, what you're looking at here, this is typically tied into let us say that this is a supermarket. This would typically be tied into their inventory system, and so as a purchase is made, for instance, the stock, so this will be connected to the server at the supermarket, for instance, or clothing store, and as an item is purchased, it has to now make contact with the server, where the server looks at the amount of the particular item being purchased that is recorded on the server. It looks at how much is available. It does the calculation, so it subtracts whatever the amount that the customer is currently purchasing from whatever it has in stock, and it makes that information available on the screen in real time. And similarly, when the customer goes now to swipe the debit or credit card, there's communication with the entity that is doing the processing for the bank. So let us say, like here in Jamaica, Multilink. Multilink is that entity that facilitates connectivity among the different banks. Alright, so it has to tap into your bank account to see if you have the amount of funds before the transaction can be approved. And if it is approved, then that amount of the transaction will be deducted from your bank balance and recorded at your bank. So that is really what makes it a terminal. Alright, so that's it. That's the end of the presentation on output devices. I hope you found the information to be quite informative. I know it is quite a lot. If you watch until the end, I really appreciate it. And I want to encourage you to go ahead and to hit that like button. You know, if you found value in this video, go ahead, hit the like button. Also, remember to subscribe to my channel. If you haven't yet subscribed, please go ahead, hit the subscription button, you know, so that, you know, this will really help my channel to grow. Remember also to hit that notification bell so that when I upload a new video, you are automatically notified. And remember also share the video so that others can get benefit from the value from the video. All right, so until next time, take care.